So one of those institutions that were promulgated to oversee the management of Ghana's environment is Environmental Protection Agency of Ghana. That's the key institution. So this institution also has the mandate to prescribe, to conduct surveys, research, come out with guidelines and standards, prescribe standards, and then also conduct compliance and enforcement under the LI 1652. So the enforcement power of the agency or the EPA passes across all institutions. So it means that the law of EPA overacts most of the laws in the country in terms of environmental management. And then when you also have the electronic waste control management Act of 917, it also gives the country the mandate to look at the Basel Convention, implement it for transboundary movement of electronic waste and also handling of electronic waste within the country. So any electronic waste that has to pass through our land to any neighboring countries will have to be policed by the country here and be sure that it goes to the destination and how it's going to be recycled or managed has to be done. And those that are internally, this law allows the management of these systems in the country. So it mandates institutions to be able to judiciously or in a proper way handle electronic waste in the system. Then comes another thing that we have, policies. There are some policies that cuts across, but we don't have policies as in the US, they have the clean air policy. We don't have environmental air quality policy. But there are a lot of policies in various laws of the country, which also tends to mention or deal with some form of air pollution. So we'll come to that. And there are a lot of strategies and interventions that has also been implemented and being implemented to be able to reduce air pollution in the country. Then we have the environment policy, we have the climate policy, and then transport policy, energy policy, and whole lot of that. Then we have the environmental quality standards and regulations that are also needed to drive the process of implementation of making sure that we become more compliant. We meet the targets, we meet the standards that are set in the country. And these are the Ghana standards for environment and health protection, requirement for ambient air quality, and point source or point emissions in the country, the GS 1236. And then the GS 1219 also is the Ghana standards for motor vehicle emission, for controlling motor vehicle emissions. And then we have ISO standards also for operationalization of the testing regimes also there. So these standards are used for most. We have about more than 26 vehicle testing centers here. And they are supposed to use this standard to be able to reduce emissions. So when you come to the climate change, there are a lot of activities. We've been working with CCAC a lot, and there are a lot of initiatives that have been done and continue to be done to ensure that we look at the climate change issues. So we have the urban health. So we have the Urban Health Initiative program in Ghana, WHO Urban Health Initiative program in Ghana. We have the cook stove activities that are going on in Ghana, production of cleaner cook stoves, and testing. There are 2 test centers in Ghana for clean cook stove. And then we have the heavy diesel management issues, and then which is the fuel quality, we call it GFI initiatives. And then we have the Accra Mega City program that was also being assisted by the US EPA. And then we have the strengthened national action plans to be able to reduce short-lived climate pollutants, and then pollution management, environmental health. So all these initiatives and work plans packages were done. These packages have been implemented and now, incorporated into the national determining contributions for the country. So now we have the 4th national communication, and then we have the NDCs that have been also implemented. And then we report to the UN FCCC biannually concerning our actions that we are be implementing in the country to be able to reduce pollution. So there was a World Bank Clean Air Initiative in 2001, which was aimed at reducing lead, phasing out lead in our fuel. Almost Africa, all countries in the group had taken off lead, and we were still using lead as a continent. So this initiative was to assist in removing lead from our fuels. And we are glad that Ghana was the first in the sub-region to do that in December 2003. And now we don't have leaded fuel as part of our energy requirements. Then we also have the Abidjan Agreement, which is the West and Central African Framework for Better Air Quality. And this is, how do you call it, almost all the West African ECOWAS countries have ascribed to this. I think Liberia, all of you have ascribed to this initiative, framework, and they are building blocks, cutting from forestry, land, construction, mining, every activity and that on those spheres have to be able to manage very well to reduce air pollution. And in 2008, I was fortunate to be one of 2 consultants who were engaged to see how the implementation levels have been. And we came out with some recommendations to continue building on this agreement. So this is also ongoing, and it's a regional program. So out of this, there was a requirement also to look at harmonized vehicle emission, standards in the sub-region. Now the sub-region has a vehicle emission standard. Out of this, there was a requirement also to come out with fuel quality, come out with less than 50 ppm sulfur in fuel. And that has also been done. And a whole lot of actions are also being implemented and reported. So we also have what we call the Sustainable Low Emission Transport Strategies. And then this one is a Cleaner Bus Initiative that was also came about. We were trying to look at how we can achieve soot-free in our buses. So coming out with cleaner fuels like LNG or LPG fuel vehicles. So because we have a lot of reserve for gas. So under the National Gas Plan, Action Plan of 2016, it makes room for producing gas to cater for the thermal plant sector and transportation sector. So we were looking at how to leverage the gas that we have in helping reducing emissions. So this is a policy, a strategy that also have been taken up by the Ministry of Transport and be implemented on. And then we have the vehicle inventory and fuel economy standards that also have been developed. So now we know how many liters per 100 kilometer of categories of vehicles that we have and how our consumption should be. And this is very, very important in national planning of emissions when we want to determine conduct emission inventory. So this is also been done. And then we also have the electric mobility policy. This policy has also been picked by Ghana government and is being implemented. Recently, it's been incorporated into the budget to have what we call emission tax, to be able to use the taxes to reduce emissions. And vehicles that emit will also be liable to pay. This is not to say that the regulations that are also being developed by EPA on motor vehicles will also not work. It will also have some penalties associated with emissions that exceed the targets. So we have other things like fuel additives, leveraging on technology like EVs, hybrids, devices, fuel additives to reduce this. A lot of permissions have been given to some companies to look at this technology, technical aspects, and implement them to reduce emissions. The PMEH, we were fortunate to have two ADOCOL stations, one at UOG. I think you went there under the Afri-Set project when you went to the tour. You saw one there, and there's one at Adobraka. And these were continuous regulatory grade continuous air quality monitors that were given to us through the Pollution Management and Environmental Health Program that was developed in collaboration with the World Bank. I think Ghana started this one with the World Bank in developing the concept, and the concept was also rolled up to the world. So this is, we have that. We have the PM, the black carbon analysis that are also giving a lot of data, clean data and good data for policy. I've mentioned the urban health initiative. This initiative was also to help influence the health sector, help to improve the health sector, and benefit that are associated with this will also, in the long run, also help reduce air pollution from that. And then we have a air pollution networking. The Ghana standard for air quality also prescribe certain actions that have to be done. That we should, every major city in the country, we should have a network of air monitors there to be able to monitor and then report to the citizens of the country. So that is also needed under the GS 1236. And then there's training. EPA cannot do this one alone. They need to train the assemblies, the MMDAs in air quality management estimations of emissions. I think Accra and Kumasi have been done. The next will be on the agenda will be in the other regional capitals. The MMDAs will be trained on that. Then we have the mega city program that also help in chemical analysis or the source apportionment program of the of EPA. And it also actually trained a lot of Ghanaian scientists, not only EPA, to be able to do chemical analysis, among others. So we have the transport policy. We are now in the transport sector policy initiatives. And the transport sector, the national transport policy actually prescribe rigorous, public transport system in the country. And the aim of this policy is also to reduce the congestion in urban areas and also help to develop standards for public transport vehicles. We didn't have standard for vehicles. So hitherto, any vehicle can come into the country, whether the size is too huge, short, or big. So now, through this policy, we now have what we call vehicle policy. That was also came up in 2020. And then the policy are now prescribe the length of vehicle, diameter, the tires, and all those things that are required to do that. So that now we now have vehicle policy in the country.